So far we did not look at data type, right? We've already talked about coercion. NumPy will automatically coerce the data type to a data type that all elements can live with. Okay, so here the L4, they're all converted into string because you have a floating point, an integer, and a string. So it's only string that all elements can live with. And similarly here in L3 we have floating point, integer, and integer. So floating point is the one that all elements can live with. So they're all coerced to floating point. But you can also force the data type. So here the list is all integer. Okay, if you don't specify data type, then NumPy will use integer because they all can live as an integer. So integer would be the data type will be used. But if you want them to be floating point, then you can force that, okay, using the dtype option. So here if you use dtype float, then even though the numbers can live as integer, that dtype equal to float forces them to floating point. Then there is an as type function. So if you have a function, if you have an array that is of one type, you can change that type into another one by using as type. So here we have integer, L6 array is integer, and you can change it to floating point after the fact. So you see here the comma d type will work when you create an array. But you've already created an array and you want to change its type, right? So you already have an array and it is integer, and you want that to be floating point, then you use the as type function. So the as type will change the contents to floating point. Okay. Coercing a floating point array to integer drops the decimal places. So if you have floating point numbers, so here there are floating points, okay, 6, 7.8, 8.201. If you force them to integer, then it's not going to round for you. The decimal values are simply dropped. Okay. Again, if you have an array of so here is a list of string elements. They are all numbers. Okay, sometimes when you read data from an external source, something that is supposed to be numbers, they may all come in as strings. So you can change the string into floating point, then the strings will be changed. Of course, they all must be legitimate numbers within the strings. Now Boolean is, remember, anything that is other than 0 is true, 0 is false. Okay, let's do your turn, then we'll stop with this. Question 11 is what? Create a floating point NumPy array with 5, 8, 9. Create a 3 by 4 okay, so this is create a, this is not the right question, I guess. Question 11. So we create a 3 by 4 NumPy array. Between 0 and 12. And extract a slice containing 1, 5, 9. So that's the, so here we have say AR11 equal to NP dot A range. So we want 12 numbers here, 0 to 12. So A range 12, and then reshape it to 3 by 4. Okay, so we want 3 by 4 array. So AR11 is like that. Okay, so now how are we going to get? Okay, so now the question is we want to specify the index for the slice 1, 5, and 9. So we want 1, 5, and 9. 1, 5, 9. So that's the one we want. So what should be the index? Okay. So 1, 5, and 9 is index 1, index position 1 in all three of them. So all from the first dimension and 1 from the second dimension. Sorry, it took a little bit longer. All right.